Welcome to another edition of Fortinet Live, where we're going to dive into the threat landscape in life sciences. I'm Troy Ament, and I'm very excited to have Derek Manky join us. Thanks for joining us, Derek.
Hey, Troy. It's always good to be here. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. So let's just dive right into it. I know we're going to talk about the state of threat in life sciences and the landscape, but what are you seeing as the top three technology or business challenges CISOs are facing in going into 2023?
Yeah, so complexity, specifically with the attack surface, this is a big thing. I mean, if we look at just the vulnerabilities that were disclosed in 2022, there's over 21,000 CVEs. That's a lot. That's a big scope. And those are all, different vehicles that attackers are trying to use to get into networks. So being able to harden that attack surface is definitely a tech challenge. But from a business challenge perspective, it's also looking at assets, right? So an up-to-date inventory of those assets, where they live, inside and outside of the network now, and are they up to date, i.e. patched, right? What security risks? So there's that business articulation conversation, right? What security risks are also associated with those assets as well too. So having visibility, centralized visibility across that attack surface, I would say, is sort of the overall challenge there too, Troy.
I can't disagree. I think those are great points. I think looking at my previous organizations, seeing the number of CVEs, 21,000, and then just trying to prioritize and learn more about the assets of an organization is a big challenge. So how does this compare to other sectors? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, so it's similar in regards that we're seeing more targeted threats. That's a trend across the board. But what I would say with life science as well, if we look at what's added extra to this now compared to like a year or two ago, is that we are seeing things that were actually more of a concern only in the public sector, specifically advanced persistent threats that are now becoming more visible, I would say, and more current with life science, right? Because again, it's not these broad blanketed attacks that we saw before, but more of the premeditated attacks that are doing more reconnaissance, specifically looking for things like intellectual property, as an example, or high valued assets, right? That could be effectively held for ransom, or extortion, double extortion, triple extortion as well too. These are all trends that we're seeing. So it's the traditional threats of ransomware that we saw, but now also more of the targeted attacks, APT style attacks, that are definitely impacting life science as well too.
Yeah, I think as I talk with CISOs in the life sciences space, whether they're developing new vaccines, new medical devices, they're sitting on a lot of intellectual property, right? And I think to get to some of that data, a lot of those attacks really have to be targeted. I think, like you said, there's not a swath of attack strategies that an organization could use to or a bad actor could use to get at those. So what do you think? So as I was going in and doing my planning every year as a CISO, I was always trying to pick the great minds of folks like yourself and figure out what's happening, what are the greatest trends. So what do you see as the three threat trends that CISO should pay attention to moving into 2023?
Yeah, so first of all, the targeted attacks, we were just talking about that. Again, that's something that I don't expect to stop, right? I mean, this has actually just been a force multiplier. We're seeing, yes, perhaps less volume, which is always a good thing, but the bad side of that equation is that even though we're starting to see some less volume, we're seeing more targets, right? And the ransom demands, the collateral damage that's happening is actually increasing to these. So that is definitely something to pay attention to. Again, the monetary demands, like for ransom, and the cost of breaches are also increasing. It's going in the wrong direction, right? So that is absolutely, I would say, something top of mind for CISOs to pay attention to. The other is that we are, it's not just a monolithic campaign from the cyber criminals. the other trend that we're seeing to pay attention to is the as a service model. So cybercrime as a service, which has a breadth of things underneath there, right? That are driving these threats. The ransom as a service, of course, we talked about, but now we're also seeing, things that we included in our predictions as an example, like, deep fakes as a service, right? Using weaponizing machine learning and artificial intelligence. So that's also something that's driving that. And what that means, of course, is that these are simply becoming more innovative in terms of the campaigns. So again, when we talk about solutions, that's why training and education always comes up with this, because it is something that is in, front and center, literally on the desk of everyone in an organization. The other thing is, the third one is destructive threats, right? That's a big threat trend to me that honestly is probably the most concerning to me because of the nature of them. Specifically data wipers. This is something we're seeing almost every week now, as we move towards the end of the year and into 2023. That is starting to, we're starting to see more creation of these threats, right? And so that's another trend I expect to see, and that CISO should definitely be aware of, because with destructive threats, once they hit, the damage has already been done, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think, as I think across life sciences and pharma, I think about clinical trials. You think about a clinical trial and all the research that goes into putting together the product, right? And then doing that trial with, hundreds or thousands of patients to get that, drug or medical device approved. And then, thinking about, destructive attacks and wipers and taking all that work, all that research, and potentially just wiping it off the face of the planet. Certainly something that CISOs and executives, COOs and CEOs of these life sciences organizations need to be concerned about and in front of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And specifically, the reason they're doing this as well too now is to use it. This is a new tool in their toolkit, and it's a way that they can be more bold, more aggressive, of course. And they're also doing it to try to cover their tracks now too. That's another effect, right? When it comes to because these attacks are the stakes are higher, and they know that, and so they're using it to try to erase the trail for forensics as well.
So let's, on a more positive note, let's talk about some of the three, what you think are three top cyber solutions to maximize protections to help these organizations out.
Sure. Well, first of all, this is across the boards. I think education, cyber hygiene, education, that's something that has to be refactored front of mind every day when it comes to phishing tests and vulnerability assessments and hardening of all of your infrastructure, right? We talked about that asset management. That is definitely something I would say would be included in that. But on top of that, now, of course, the work from anywhere environment I talked about, knowing where those assets are in and outside of the network. A great solution to that, of course, is ZTNA. We talk about that, right? Because that is something with the nature of zero trust, being able to have those assets moving, right, in and out of the network, but also secure, access to applications. The other ones in the nature of the targeted attacks I was talking about are things like DRPS, right? So when we look at that, what cyber criminals are doing on reconnaissance, how they can actually try to do brand reputation management, stealing and selling credentials as an example, that all falls under DRPS. And we have, FortiRecon is an example of that too, from a solution perspective. And deception, right? I mean, deception is something that is really, when we talk about targeted attacks and attackers trying to get into networks to get that intellectual property that you're talking about, it is a great solution to be able to deploy decoys on systems to effectively stop attackers in their tracks and get a lot of good threat intelligence on them at the same time.
A couple of things that I see, which is great collaborations within healthcare and life sciences, is actually life sciences and biotech and medical device manufacturers coming together and building and helping organizations build decoys, right? So putting more of these network sensors and decoys of maybe a connected medical device or laboratory equipment out in customer environments so they can maybe get some more proactive learning. A lot more partnerships between the CISOs and the product management teams within product security within medical device manufacturers. That's been, I think, a lot of momentum there. And then you talked about digital risk protection, right? I think being more proactive in getting some of that data to, protect your organization, whether it's, phishing attempts, credential theft, that type of thing as well, has been important. So, I think that's what we wanted to kind of cover today. Any kind of closing thoughts, Derek, as we?
Well, I would just say that everything we talked about too, it's not, the good news is the technology is here now. It doesn't have to be complicated. Doing something like DRPS, 5 years ago, you need a pretty heavy threat hunting team and a SOC. And again, but through things like SOC as a service now and DRPS and all these services that are attached to this, it's becoming much, much more turnkey and easy to deploy nowadays too. And the, if you look at the ROI, right, from an investment up front versus that collateral damage and risk that I was talking about, the risk is so much higher nowadays. So again, having some of these turnkey services is quite a viable approach.
Great. Well, this has been another great Fortinet Live. Appreciate everyone for joining, and thank you, Derek, for joining me.
All right. It was a pleasure. Thanks, Troy.